It is Locked On Jazz for the 10th of January. Donovan Mitchell returns. Let's look back. Some of the fun little notes we may have forgotten about his run in Utah and how you might slow him down tonight. Plus, retro on the weekend. Lauri's massive offensive explosion and Ochai and Walker making rookie strides. Ringer's top 100 is out. How many Jazz players are in it? Plus late game watch. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. Join the conversation on YouTube. Please subscribe to all of them. If you're on YouTube, hit that little bell and get notified every time we go live. Donovan Mitchell returns tonight. It's going to be fun, exciting, great energy in the building tonight as Ryan Smith, a celebration of Donovan's 5 years in Utah and what he brought us. I went back last night in preparation to kind of retro the run. And it's an interesting kind of look back at the three-time All-Star and how many times he kind of revitalized us, the what-ifs to it, the Rudy relationship. So I want to take a second and do that. Then we'll touch on some Jazz items for the weekend. Ringer's Top 100 just came out. We'll do that as well. And then some interesting late-game watches if time permits. Today's show is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Today, first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. So Donovan, three-time All-Star for us. It was 12 days after he was drafted that Gordon Hayward kind of ripped our hearts out and left to go to Boston. And there was really, that was a desolate time. That was also a feeling of like, if we can't keep Gordon Hayward, who can we keep? And if Rodney Hood's our best player, oh dear. Like it was desperate times. And then it feels like at the Huntsman Center is my memory. I think the Vivint was under construction. At the Huntsman Center, Donovan just goes bananas in the summer league and like immediately gives us hope. And then my recollection on that was like, gosh, wow, this is, he's incredible, quite a burden. Dante Exum, I think, also played well. And so it was like this kind of feeling of like, wow, like it's still summer league. But there was a pizzazz and there was a bounce and there was this incredible willingness to take the burden, which I think both on and off the court is kind of the signature of his 5 years in Utah and the youngster that he was at the time and the maturing adult that we watched him become, is that he was willing to be like, all right, well, I didn't know that I was actually coming out for the draft. The story at the time was that Paul George and Chris Paul and him had all worked out together and they told him he was ready. He had not, if you recall, he had been benched in January of that year by Rick Pitino at Louisville. So this was, quite a quantum leap to then become the go-to guy for an NBA franchise that quickly. And then, if you recall, Rodney Hood gets sick and can't start opening night. Rodney Hood's announced to the crowd as the starter, and he's nowhere to be seen. So Quinn Snyder looks down to Donovan and says, all right, let's go. And Donovan then starts and becomes the starter on opening night accidentally. And starts brutally. Like, these are the things I think we forget about his run. He starts brutally. He's 13 of his first 53, 3 of his first 18. He goes to Philly to play Ben Simmons, goes 3 for 21 with 1 assist, is being lambasted for being not passing. He's 11 games into his career. He's shooting 34% from the field, 32% from 3, and there is real concern that he is being stretched well beyond anything he's capable of, and that he's in over his head. And I remember watching him work out with Johnny Bryant before games. And he would work on something in that either morning session or before games and implement it that night. It was incredible. Like, you just don't see it. You usually see guys work on things for months and months and months and months, and then he would implement it. And it was like, oh, he's different. And so the opening like when I look back at Donovan's 5 years in Utah, I look at three things. I look at the amount of times he like revitalized us as a fan base, a community, and we'll get to that. 2, his remarkable willingness to take the burden both on and off the court. And 3 is growth, right? He's not drafted as a top 5 pick at all. And then by the end of that year, then there's the breakout game. Actually, it was 6. Steve Klauke called it. He scored 41 against New Orleans. And you're like, oh, okay. Oklahoma City game 6, he drops 38 as a rookie and takes down Russell Westbrook and Paul George. Ridiculous. He then has a tough playoff series that next year in Houston, and then the next year he kind of matures, he gets better. I think he goes from like 20 to 24 points a game, second year in the league. So little murmur, like, why isn't he taking the jump? And it was like, well, because he took it his first year. But he gets better, and then he busts in the playoffs against Houston in 18-19 as second-year player, shoots 32% and 26%. And the 2020 season is all about him learning from that. And he does that, and then COVID hits. And COVID's laden with all sorts of stuff, right? He gets it. Does he get it from Rudy? Did he get it from Marcus Smart when he was out with Marcus Smart in Boston? Did he get it? Who knows? We'll never know, right? But we didn't know at the time. There was so much lack of knowledge, huge frustration that Rudy was lackadaisical with some of the protocols and gave it, and the thought was gave it to Donovan. And so there's just all that. And the team goes to the bubble. Quinn kind of rebuilds the camaraderie of the group, and Donovan has the bubble explosion. And that's the second time I would say that he really like uplifted us, revitalized us. That was a tough time, right? We were in the middle of COVID. Things weren't right. The world didn't feel good. NBA came back for us in this weird bubble, and Donovan was just electric. Absolutely electric. And then I would say the fourth storyline of his career. So if his career is this kind of growth and this burden, and the last part is what if? What if? Probably, third year in the league is too soon for this, but that game 7 start against Denver, the Milwaukee stoppage where they don't come out and play because of the police violence in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and suddenly that backs up the series, and that gets Gary Harris back, and the Jazz lose their mojo. Like the what if Clippers are a disaster and want to get out of the bubble for the next series. Could have we made the Western Conference Finals? And the first of the what ifs really is that first half against Denver in game 7 of that playoff series. We just didn't come to play. In one of the most important games of the year, the group, for whatever reason, that group that did not come to play, which is, super hard to understand. 2021 is where Ryan Smith started on his list of things about Donovan. They carry us to the best record of the NBA. And so it's another growth step. He comes out of the bubble in 2021. He averages 26 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. He's really remarkable. 44% from the field, 39% from 3, 85% from the line. He's incredible the whole year. And he is at his peak. He's got a 5-game run where he averaged 37 points a game late in mid-April. The season's off time a little bit. His 15 games prior to April 16th, he's averaging 31 points. He's had 9 of those 15 games he's over 30. 4 of them he's over 40. He's shooting 48% from the field, 39% from 3. He's as good as he's ever been, and he sprains his ankle on April 16th. Ed Sumner of Indiana gets under him. And he doesn't play again for the rest of the regular season. He misses game 1 against Memphis. And there it is again. There's the what if. That's to me is the number 1 record in the NBA. Donovan, for the 15 games prior to that injury, is averaging 31 points a game. He's shooting 48% and 39% from 3. He's really the player he is right now. Then, for the first time, He was absolutely superstar caliber, elite level, and looked like he was ready to carry the Jazz to the NBA Finals. Sprains that ankle. It's hard to say he wasn't quite right. He drops 45 and 37 in the game 1-2 wins against the Clippers. We then lose 4 straight. We fall apart. And frankly, that's the end of it then. We'll all think of this offseason as when we made the trades. But that was the end of the run right then. The soul of the team was broken. They never overcame their scars from the Denver Game 7, from the Clipper 4-game losses in a row, from all just kind of the sideshow aspects of that. Last year, we have this memory of like last year being completely awful. He gets super hot in the middle of December, averages 29 points a game for a 12-game stretch, shoots 50-36, again, kind of right where he is right now. We're 10-2 in that stretch. We're 26-9 on the season. Like, it's still there. And then COVID hits. They lose in Detroit. Rudy makes the Devin Booker comments. Donovan doesn't come back quite right. Donovan misses 2 games right after Christmas with a sore back, like at the peak of where he is, and we never quite come back around from that. So that's the run I remember, the 4 kind of picking us up, revitalizing us the 3 times right after Gordon, right after COVID, and in that best record season. His willingness to take the burden of being the number 1 guy, of trying to carry, of getting better after the Houston playoff series, and then off the court as well. He was with us in an interesting period of time. George Floyd, Black Lives Matters, and he took the burden. In a predominantly white state, he took the burden of being conservative state to say, these are the things I'm seeing that aren't wrong, and if you're somebody out there that's being victimized, we'll be there to support you. And the sad bullying story in Davis County, the things of that nature, he was there to say, here's your voice. I'm the most recognizable person in the marketplace, and I'm willing to be here to support you. He took that burden as a 24, 25-year-old kid. It's pretty remarkable. It's pretty admirable, actually. It's really what I think we would hopefully raise all of our kids to be, the one who's actually willing to take these burdens. And then the growth. The growth is peaking out right now. He's just exceptional right now. And then, no question, that final piece of the puzzle of Donovan's run, as he even said in a quote from Phoenix, is what if? There's the what if, the injury on April 16th of 2021, somehow whether that group could have gotten together last year. I even look at it now still, frankly. The West has no dominant team. There's no elite level to anything right now. I just wonder if there was some way you could have held it for another year, and it wasn't there. Danny Ainge said it well. Like, the team didn't have a zest. Quinn didn't have any juice left. Could have Will Hardy led it? Who knows? We'll never know, but it leads us with a bunch of what ifs. And now he's great. Like, his first 12 games this season, he averaged 32, 5, and 6. His first 23 games, he averaged 29, 4, and 5. He's quietly cooled. His last 10 games with the 71-point game in there, he's averaging 27 points and only shooting 44% and only 33% from 3. He's quietly cooled a little bit, but his off-the-bounce 3 is the difference. Last year, he shot 36% from 3, and this year he's shooting 44%. So we'll talk a little bit how you slow him. We'll get into some of the Jazz stuff left over from the weekend. There's still a lot there. Ringer Top 100 came out. We're loaded today. Ton of stuff. Donovan's return. Should be a fun night. A celebration of his 5 years in Utah, an opportunity to thank him for that revitalization that he gave us on multiple occasions, that run to the best record, and a chance for us to think a little bit about, like, gosh, what if, what could have been in that run, which is always the case if you don't win the title along the way. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross. Also up in Logan, the Chevy lineup of cars is absolutely remarkable. The trucks are the Colorado and the Silverado. And the Silverado is the big monster power truck with incredible luxury in it. The Colorado, more zippy. The SUV lineup is super solid as well. Starts with the Blazer and the Trailblazer. Of course, it's got the Utah County assault vehicles, the Tahoe and the Suburban. And then the tracks there as well. It's all over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street. Located in Woods Cross, also located in Linden. If you're going to stop by, please let me know first so we can set up a meeting for you and give you the Murdoch Locked On VIP treatment going over at Murdoch Chevy. You also right now, by the way, all sorts of cash allowance givebacks to you on the Silverado and the SUVs as well. And there's the first ever all-electric Silverado available in the fall of 2023, so reserve yours now. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, where with a $100 deposit, you can end up getting a $100 back. That's right. Here's how it works for you with Prize Picks. 100% deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKED ON. It's very simple and easy to play Prize Picks. You pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than the Prize Picks projection, that's your choice. Then you could win up to 25 times your money on your entry. No competing against other people. It's you against the projections. Every sport's available, including disc golf. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in 30 states or more. So download the Prize Picks app. Go to prizepicks.com, sign up, and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKED ON. If you deposit 100, you get 150, 50, 72, 50, 72, 50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKED ON at sign up for the deposit match up to $100. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available on all podcasting platforms. And your second listen today, make sure you go listen to Locked On Sports Today, a rundown of all the big important things happening in the sports world in 22 minutes. All right. How do you slow down Don? Let's get to the game. So they do run a little bit different stuff with him because they have Darius Garland. They'll run him. It's not that different than actually, frankly, having Mike Conley, but Garland's a bigger scorer. Garland will take the ball a little bit more. So what you'll see from Don is a little bit more coming from off the ball into his shots and into his actions. And he's a super catch and shoot shooter over the last few years. He's not as good right now for whatever kind of weird reason. His off the bounce 3 shot is amazing. They'll run about the same amount of picks between Garland and Donovan throughout the night. So it's kind of a 1-to-1 ratio. Karis LeVert gets a little bit. Donovan will run a few more with Jared Allen. Darius Garland will run a few more with Evan Mobley. Donovan and Jared Allen have the combo going. They're up there in the elite combinations of the NBA. He and Mobley have it going a little bit as well. I mean, this is where he understands how to play with a roll big better than most. Garland is actually almost better on small switches with Donovan or working with Kevin Love on a pop because he's just so small. So it's kind of, JB Bickerstaff is kind of figuring out what the right ways to do it. They're running a lot of Donovan ISO on the left side of the floor. They let Donovan go get it on the left side of the floor, and then he comes to his right hand to the middle about 2-to-1 right now. He about 67 to 33%. He'll come to the right side on his drives. And they're playing him a little bit of an ISO on the left side. He wants that step back out of that. And if he goes to his right, he's a little bit better than if he goes to his left. And you've got to get up on him and take away that step back. And then when you do, they'll bring the picks a little bit to that. So, and then on the ISO stuff, he's pretty good right now. He's rolling. And that's that same left side of the floor. On isolations right now, he's the 34th most common. So not a huge percentage, but he's 16 out of the top 69. He's the 7th best in the pick and roll. Only Doncic, Durant, Curry, Alec Burks, DeMar DeRozan, and Eric Gordon, of all things, are better. The one thing he's not doing well is shooting it off the bounce. Off the catch and shoot. The off the bounce step back, you've got to find a way to take that away from him. All right, I want to jump in a few things Jazz related from over the weekend because we played that Thursday. I didn't do a show Friday, and we had the Saturday, and I kind of tried to jam it in the backside of the Ryan Smith interview and didn't do a very good job of it yesterday. Special thanks again to Ryan if you didn't catch that yesterday. It's available to you. I'll link it to you at the end of the show so you can grab it. So one is Lauri's 49-point outburst, but then his overall weekend. Will Hardy just talked about his ability and his versatility in scoring inside of a game and how he can adapt. The thing that Will Hardy loved about the 49-point game was he misses 8 straight threes and scores 25 points. And there's a bunch of elements to this. One is he missed 8 straight threes and he kept playing and kept shooting, which shows he's beginning to understand that he's the number one guy. And I tried to get into this yesterday. His teammates also now understand he's the number one guy. So that's a big evolution for this team that started the year with no idea what the pecking order was and whose show it is. And they got to keep the ball moving. They can't just suddenly stop and give it to Lauri because Lauri's not his numbers on isolation are unbelievable, but they're really just because he's picking his spots to go. Like he's only done 88 isolations all year long. He's actually the best in the NBA at it. But if you compare that to like Clarkson, 262, some of this is just because he's picking his spot. And when he has a matchup that's so good, he does it or not. He still hasn't learned, it's pretty high to the ground. at 7 feet. So as he's trying to drive and work on guys on an ISO or how to own his space in those plays, that's still kind of new territory for him that he has to learn here to be able to add that to his game. So we're seeing that, but we're also, we're going to see how the team evolves and making sure they don't become too Lauri dependent. But it's been pretty interesting to watch very impressively as he kind of becomes the man, understands his role there, and the versatility that he's having throughout a game in the different ways he scores, whether it's out on the break, off an offensive rebound, catch and shoot. He's elite level catch and shoot, and he's one of the league leaders in catch and shoot. He's taken, I think he's taking the 4th most catch and shoot threes of any player in the NBA right now per night. Klay Thompson's getting 8, Buddy Hield's getting 7, Max Strus is getting 6.5, and Lauri Markkanen's getting 6.3, Beasley's getting 6.2, and Lowry's at 42.6%. Andrew Wiggins is better. Buddy Hield is better right now by just a notch, but that's about it. George Niang's at 43% and Devin Vassell's at 47%. But of the top 50 guys, there are not many guys that are better than Lauri right now at that catch and shoot, and you can't take away that shooting window. So you're seeing the multitude of ways. Ochai Abaji, that was pretty great. Will Hardy suddenly out of nowhere says it's time for Ochai to play. And then out of nowhere, Ochai can't miss a shot. After not making a shot in the G League, he goes and buries his corner threes and is absolutely terrific. The things I think are more important than the shooting, he's not going to be able to do that shooting-wise, is contributing in other ways. He set some really good picks and read some offense really well in the first game. He had a super pass in the second good game he had. He's got to rebound and defend a little bit. His defensive numbers are pretty good right now, and they've got to stay up to where they are. So the shooting, I'm a little nervous to get super excited when the shooting is, you can't be a 90% shooter, but if he can be a 40% knockdown shooter, play with some athleticism, he had a nice left-hand drive. Can he have a consistent right-hand drive where you can get him the ball off pin down, have him drive right-handed? Just basic fundamental steps in his game right now. And I think we're going to get to see him for the next 40 games develop. And it's pretty nice. You got Lauri, you got Ochai contributing. You've got 3 first-round draft picks and 2 pick swaps. And the guy on the other side, they're as happy as can be. That's a pretty cool trade on a win-win on both sides of that deal. So pretty great. The other one, Walker, who I thought looked super tired and exhausted and like he'd hit the wall, had a fabulous game last night. Some of his data's great. And some of it's that the Jazz have protected him really well. I mean, he's still just not strong enough, and he gets pinned underneath the basket in certain times, and he's got guys that are beating him up. But within 6 feet right now, players are shooting 12 percentage points below average when he's the closest defender. That's the 9th best in the NBA as a rookie. That's pretty great. Overall shooting, guys are shooting, of the top 100 players who've defended shots, he's the 12th best in the NBA as teams are shooting 4 percentage points, or players are shooting 4 percentage points below their expected value on those shots. Those are incredible numbers for a guy that, is learning on the fly, going through it. And I think he's exhausted, and I don't know that you rest him. I think you just drive him to All-Star break, let him rest there, and then see what he can do on the backside of the season. But he is showing every indicator of being a terrific pickup by the Jazz, and the defense is now 8.5 points better when he's on the floor than off the floor. That's pretty incredible. And the defensive shooting accuracy when he's in the game is 5 percentage points less good at the rim than when he's on the floor versus off the floor. So pretty exciting stuff with Walker Kessler right now. So those 3 pickups in the offseason, 3 major pieces for the Jazz as they move this thing forward. Pretty darn impressive. Today's show is brought to you also by our friends over at Bet Online. Bet Online, where it all begins for you with great fun opportunities for you with odds, news, and scores. Get over to betonline.net and see what you got. NFL playoffs are upon us. Here are the lines if you want to get in on the action with the NFL this weekend. Seahawks are a 10-point dog against the Niners. The Chargers are a 1-point favorite in Jacksonville on Saturday. Sunday, Buffalo is a 10.5-point favorite over Miami. The Vikings are a 3-point favorite over the Giants, whereas the Cincinnati Bengals are a 6.5-point favorite at home over the Ravens. And our final one, the Cowboys, favored against Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Tonight, for the Jazz and the Cavaliers, the Jazz are a 3-point dog to the Cavaliers with the over-under at 226.5, and the Cavs by 3. That's all at betonline.net, where the game starts. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Game to Game is out. The run-through of all things in the NBA for you. Super fun. Make sure you go grab it and take part in all the excitement that is NBA Game to Game with all the local experts giving you the 1-minute breakdowns of each and every game, making you feel like you went to every single game that night. Ringer Top 100. We aren't going to get to late game watch today. Ringer Top 100 came out. We'll get to it tomorrow. Stockpiled a bunch of games. Atlanta, I got some thoughts on the Clippers. Giannis did some things last night that was super impressive. So we'll get to it. The top 100 came out by Ringer today. I don't know how you do the top 9 or 8 or 9 or 8. Really the top 8. They did Giannis, Jokic, Curry, Doncic, Durant, Embiid, Tatum, LeBron. LeBron's probably right at 8, but be careful there. Giannis is probably right at 1 because he defends. Curry, on the other end, very well just go. I think the Warriors are the favorite in the West right now. Like Curry might want to just win another title right now. Jokic and Doncic are unstoppable. Durant's totally unstoppable. He's defending actually better than either Doncic or Jokic right now. Embiid's pretty unstoppable. He defends better than both of them. I'm not sure where you put him. And Tatum's the MVP of the league. Like, I'm not entirely sure that's true. But you got my point. The next tier is Anthony Davis, who was dominant before he went out, which also the Lakers, as terrible as they are, they make a right move or two here at the trade deadline. They have 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA going into Western Conference playoffs that's wide open. Like, it's not crazy. So AD, then Zion, then Ja, then Devin Booker, and then Donovan Mitchell at 13, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 14, and Paul George at 15. I wonder if Paul George really is still 15. Probably. From a Jazz standpoint, 3 guys made the list. Lauri Markkanen made it at 33. Pretty great for the you can be, first of all, you can be that good. He's been amazing. And be 33rd is a tribute to the talent in the NBA. They have him the guys ahead of him are Drew Holiday, Karl Anthony Towns, De'Aaron Fox, Kyrie Irving, Darius Garland, Trae Young, Bam Adebayo, Domantas Sabonis. You can quibble if you want to. You wouldn't quibble if he wasn't a Jazz player. Guys, he's ahead of Desmond Bane, Draymond Green, Anthony Edwards, Bradley Beal, Andrew Wiggins, DeJounte Murray, Jeremy Grant. He's better than those guys. Bradley Beal is just a mystery. So 33 for Lauri and probably projecting to keep moving up that list. Though those guys we just mentioned are all super good. Like Brandon Ingram's at 24. That's kind of my player I think he's most similar to right now, except for the fact he's efficient and Brandon Ingram's not. Lauri is also the 3rd best rim defender in the NBA right now. Maybe some unique numbers in there because it doesn't seem like that's the case. But it's worth noting. So maybe he should be a little bit higher. The eye-opener on this list, or let me just give one more Jazz player, and then before we'll get to the eye-opener on this list to me, and I'm sure you all know where I'm going. So then Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson jump in the 80s. Conley at 84 and Clarkson at 85. I think that's a tribute to the Jazz winning. Players that are behind them are Jordan Poole, Alex Caruso, Zubac in LA, Kayvon Looney, RJ Barrett, Bobby Portis, Tobias Harris, 92, Benedict Mathurin, 93, Norm Powell, 94. By the way, RJ Barrett, 90, Lauri Markkanen, 33, but sure, the Knicks package was better. Good read by Danny Ainge in the front office right there. So the other one that's interesting is that Rudy Gobert is now 48th. The fate of Rudy Gobert this year, we'll see how long this lasts. At some point, I'd still believe that I believed in Brooklyn as this like dominant number 1 seeded team 3 years ago and kind of have had to eat crow about it for 2 years and kind of have held on to it and, still might turn out to be accurate. I kind of am doing the same with Minnesota right now, that I'm trying not to let recency bias skew my viewpoint. But Rudy dropping to 48, there are some data points, and I kind of mentioned them on the night of the trade. Seth Partnow wrote about a few of them recently in Athletic. And that are showing some real decline. And if, in fact, that decline is happening, I got to tell you what, unbelievable trade by the Jazz, which I think it is anyway. But the reading at the time by Danny Ainge on that one may turn out to be an all-time historic great read. One last thing, and that is that Tony Jones, two things. Tony Jones of The Athletic wrote a fabulous piece with some real honesty about Donovan's role in our community and what Tony as a black man has experienced. And I thought it was super interesting of what he said. Very positive about his 15 years in Utah, but also talked about, like, here's what he wrote. I thought this was a wonderful paragraph. He said, I'll take just because it's under a paywall and I thought it was important. I'll take a second and read it to wrap up the show. As an African American, this is Tony Jones writing. I understand part of where Donovan came from, the multiple issues that made him uncomfortable, the tragic story of Izzy Teixeira being an example, along with the Jazz having to ban a fan for racially charged comments toward Russell Westbrook, along with Utah Senator Stuart Adams chiding Mitchell for his stance on critical race theory. They also made me uncomfortable, writes Tony. As someone who's raising two daughters and as someone who is proud of my blackness, some of the same things that got under Mitchell's skin, they got under my skin as well. And that's why I don't blame Mitchell for that part of him wanting to get out of Utah. That being said, I've had a mostly wonderful experience living in Utah for 15 years. My oldest is now a freshman in college. My youngest will enter high school next year. My youngest has spent all of her life in Utah, is well-adjusted, has great friends. My oldest moved here when she was 4, so she essentially spent all of her life here, although at the first opportunity, she chose to go to school clear across the country. The elephant in the room is that as wonderful an experience as I've had here, and as much as I love my job and the state as a whole, Utah has a racism issue. The sooner we admit it's an issue, the sooner we can tackle the issues like human beings, exact, real, and meaningful change. Mitchell is a unique case among Jazz players, past and future, because he sought to make real and meaningful change. And that just wasn't a battle he was going to win on his own. My saying this is not meant to diss Utah or Utahns, because I've lived in a lot of places and have seen a lot of racism in my life and have seen it up close and personal. The bigger issue isn't just that Utah has a racism issue to deal with. In 2023, that can be said for practically anywhere in the country. And in 2023, knowing some of those struggles my grandparents went through and some of the real elders in my family, this saddens me more than anything. I've learned to deal with these things at face value. When I was a child and my mother moved to Detroit a few years, I was told her I'd heard a lot of crime and bad people. Her response was, there are good and bad people everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. I was about 8 at the time, and those words have always struck with me. And that did me a ton of good because it's always helped me look at the situation objectively. Mitchell became uncomfortable in Utah. That's no fault of the Jazz themselves, who did everything they could, and then some to make sure he was happy. I don't think either side deserves a ton of blame on this partnership that ultimately didn't work out. Good work, TJ. And congratulations to Sarah Todd of the Deseret News, who was named Sports Writer of the Year. Well earned. Been fun to work with her. Watch her grow as a reporter. She's quite good. Does great work for the Deseret News. Traveling a ton right now. So congratulations to her as well. That is Locked on Jazz today. Thanks so very much for tuning in. Have a great one.